Welcome back, folks. Kevin the editor here. You're watching the third of several videos from the Thursday evening, April 25th, 2024 Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum held at the Rockmart Theater. This is part 2 of the session for the school board candidates. If you stumbled upon this one by chance, you'll need to head backward to part 1, video number 2 in the series. A quick reminder that all of the candidate forums are being made freely available for public consumption on polktoday.com. The forum held on Tuesday, April 23rd in Cedartown is also available on polktoday.com. We'll get right into it, but if you need to pause for a quick break, don't feel too bad for hitting that button.
And in the interest of time, I'll just ask the question one time from this point forward, and then if you need me to repeat it, please let me know. I'd be happy to. So we'll start with Mr. Teams on this one. If you are elected, would you support a school tax exemption for senior homeowners?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna be 60 this summer, and I see, yeah, laugh, Jeff. I'm gonna be 60 this summer, and I see, you know, our elderly citizens going, you know, I don't have students in school. What about helping me out with taxes? I'm for that as long as we have a sound budget. The money's got to come from somewhere. If we don't have it in the budget, if our tax dollars are not bringing that in. A lot of people see things like, somebody told me the other day from another school district, well, I heard your Polk school district spent all their money on an auditorium. People see all these projects, or you're spending on turf, and now you're having to cut teachers. We, as voters, have been passing spliced taxes, which cannot be spent on personnel. So those, and if you're not very familiar with SPLOST, when you have a SPLOST vote, you have to list those projects, and then that funding for that project is pulled out of that SPLOST. So there's a lot of misconceptions that we're just building this and doing that in Polk County, and that's where all the money's going. That's not exactly true. I know that they've been hit with some budget restraints and things, but there's just so many misconceptions out there about how that has happened or why that has happened, that I have to get on that school board and see that funding module, see where everything lays out, and make sure, bottom line, we have our needs, and if we have to make cuts, who is truly expendable that is not at the expense of student learning.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the tax cut for not just necessarily senior citizens, but anybody that's retired on a fixed budget. I mean, once you retire, I mean, you're on a fixed income. But with that being said, we have to be financially sound, because right now we're relying on that tax base to affect student learning. So if it's not there, then we run the risk of affecting student learning, like class size, technology, and all the things that money funds. So I'm all for it. We just have to get in there and figure out how can we be financially sound and responsible to where that's not an issue anymore. We're not relying on that senior citizen with no kids or never had kids on their tax dollars. So that's one of my goals. I think we should be in a position like that. I think if you worked all your life and you paid your taxes all your life and your kids are grown and gone, I don't think it's your responsibility per se. But on the other side, you know, we want to make this a productive citizen, a productive county, a productive school system. And every student we turn out that's a productive citizen because of those tax dollars, it makes everybody's life a lot better. So, but yeah, I'm in favor of that. I just wish and hope that we can get to financially secure where we can make that happen.
Ms. Robinson?
If elected, I would support a school tax exemption for senior homeowners once they have reached a certain age. The question of whether senior citizens should pay school taxes or not is a complex and controversial issue. Some argue that because seniors don't have children in school, they should not have to pay school taxes. Others argue that seniors will still benefit from a well-educated society and should therefore contribute to funding of schools. On the one hand, seniors may live on a fixed income and may struggle to afford the additional expense of school taxes. If seniors don't have children in school, they may feel that they are not directly benefiting from the educational system and therefore should not be paying for it. On the other hand, a well-educated society benefits everyone, including the senior citizens. Education can lead to a more skilled and productive workforce, which can in turn lead to economic growth and higher living standards. The decision of whether or not senior citizens should pay taxes is a matter of policy and depends on the values and priorities of the community. Surrounding counties have already implemented that once the senior citizen has reached that age point, they no longer should have to pay the school tax.
Mr. Williams?
Ideally, yes, but not at the expense of our school system, the education of our students. I made a phone call to the tax commissioner's office yesterday in the hopes of finding out what percentage our seniors are paying in taxes for the budget, but I did not come away with an answer. I get that seniors, as they've stated before me, have concerns that, hey, I don't have a student or a family member in the school system, but in our community, we've got to all support the education system until we can offset those funds by the growth in industry, which is probably coming right around the corner to Polk County. It's bittersweet as we increase in population and subdivision growth, which is a big topic here in the past few months. Some of our seniors, we all, and other citizens, we enjoy our small town, our small community. But we've either got to take on the burden as a whole or be open-minded to the growth that's coming to offset some of that burden and the cost to the county.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Question will be addressed to you first. How do you plan to allocate resources effectively to support student learning and well-being?
So on the funding, first of all, funding is for all students, and we just need to get that out there that all students across BSD. That's what the funding is for, and that's what everybody's here for. To me, I treat it like the military. So you got squad leader, platoon sergeant, captains. And I think the school administrators should be in charge of their budget. Say, here's your budget, this is for your school. Now, you and your administrators and your leadership team, y'all figure out how y'all make increase student learning, close that gap, and have productive schooling. And here's your funding. And I think by doing that, we're giving the funding to where the rubber hits the road. They're there every day. They see what's going on. They know what they need to do. So why not go ahead and just push all that funding out to them and let them manage it. Of course, with some oversight, because there's oversight on everything. There's still going to be things that need to be handled by Board of Education and central office, but if we can back those off to just the necessary things to keep the school running, and then let the main driver of the boat is the administrators of those schools, because they are on the front line. So to me, that's how I see funding and how I'd like to see it run in the school system, and that's something that I'll be pushing for. Let's move funding as best we can down to the administrators and let them manage their schools with the funding that's been allocated.
Mr. Teams?
Twice a year, school systems take what is called an FTE count, and they look at their enrollment through that FTE, and the FTE drives funding. When a budget is laid out and you're looking at that funding, the funding relates into what's called QBE, and then with the QBE, you learn how many teachers that you're allocated based on that funding. Most school systems have to hire above and beyond the FTE counts, the QBE funds, to accommodate all the different areas of learning. So you have to make sure that FTE funding is dispersed adequately, then you have to look at your programs. Do we have any programs that we're using now that are outdated, or our teachers don't use because they're hard to use, or we have learned that they're just not successful? You cut those programs, you find programs to replace them, or other avenues for that same learning. But the bottom line is, we have to learn what is important, what areas need improvement, and then we have to have those very important budget meetings to determine what funds can we take from here to put over here. You know, like we were talking about the tax base with seniors and all that. A lot of these counties are booming with industry. They're booming with retail. The interstate's going through tons of businesses, and so we have to compete educationally with those. Bottom line is, we have to drive our funding in the areas where we need improvement and make sure that we're doing what we need there before we can add the fluff to the other programs.
Mr. Williams?
Simply by communicating, interacting with our administrators to ensure that this decision and actions are working to achieve this goal. Anytime allocation of resources, decisions are being made, there's always going to be one part of the equation that's not going to be happy with how things are being done. It's hard to make everybody happy. And from the outside looking in as a citizen, we see all of the things going on in Polk School District with the buildings being developed, the facilities being improved, and your first thought is maybe we're spending too much money on those things. Well, those things are coming out of possibly a different fund. For instance, the SPLOSH, which is, those funds are allocated for those projects. It's not coming out of taxpayer money as far as property taxes. It's a tough job, I'm sure, to make decisions on where those needs are. However, I think with open dialogue and communication and with one another, you do what's important first in a common sense way by allocating those funds to those needs. We all grew up mostly in homes that were a little bit more frugal than the generation we live in nowadays. We learned to live without certain things, and society's changed. However, maybe we need to get back to, maybe a little bit more fiscal responsibility, and it just takes common sense to make certain choices of where the money's needed.
Ms. Robinson?
As an educated focused candidate, I believe that allocating resources effectively is critical to supporting students' learning and their well-being. My plan for resource allocation would prioritize funding for programs that directly support student learning and development, such as classroom supplies, technology, and teacher professional development. Additionally, I would advocate for increased funding for the mental health services, counseling, and social emotional learning programs that help promote students' well-being and address the individual needs of each student. I would also work to ensure that resources are distributed equally across all schools in our district to ensure that every student has access to the same opportunities and resources, regardless of the zip code and their background. By working collaboratively with teachers, parents, and the community members, I'm confident we can develop a comprehensive plan to allocate resources effectively and support our students' well-being and their success.
This next question will begin with Ms. Robinson. What are your thoughts on a 4-day school week versus a 5-day school week?
My thoughts on the 4-day versus a 5-day. The idea of a 4-day school week versus a 5-day school week is a complex issue, and it requires careful consideration of the pros and the cons. On the one hand, a 4-day school week could offer benefits such as reduced transportation costs, more time for extracurricular activities, and additional time for teacher planning and professional development. On the other hand, it could also lead to longer school days, increased childcare costs for working parents, and reduced instructional time for the students. Before making a decision, it's essential to involve all of our stakeholders, thus including the teachers, parents, and students in this discussion. Their feedback and input are critical to understanding the potential impact of such a change. It's crucial to consider the impact on students' learning and achievements, particularly for vulnerable populations such as low-income students and those with special needs. While the idea of a 4-day school week may seem appealing on the surface, it's essential to weigh the potential benefits and drawback carefully. As a candidate, I advocate for a 5-day school week. While the 4-day school week can offer longer weekends, potentially reduce the burnout of school, and provide more time for extracurricular activities and family time, it does not outweigh the importance of our students' success and the impact it has had on their academic performance.
Mr. Williams?
I've got the most response back from citizens, teachers, and administrators once they found out I was running for school board. In an ideal world, we'd all love to go to work 4 days a week and be able to accomplish the same goals in that lesser amount of time. However, and it's not easy for teachers to interact with students these days. Discipline in students has dropped. For those of you that knew my dad as a teacher, he told me years ago, he said, it's just not the same. It's harder to interact with kids. You would think that teachers would enjoy that Monday off to have a break, to catch up, to plan. However, a majority, if not all, of the conversations I've had, most of those teachers and administrators and citizens, they've said we need to go back to a 5-day school week. The kids are losing time in the classroom and they're falling behind, potentially. I would advocate for a 5-day school week just on the fact that there are certain students who the most positive interaction of their week is at school. And we're leaving those students in the community out that day when probably their comfort zone and shelter from things going on in certain societies is not positive. So I was encouraged by the teachers who said we need to go back to a 5-day school week. That'll be an additional day that they will have to interact with kids. It's not an easy job. But for the most part, each and every one of them have said they deserve that time in the school, and it's what's best they felt for the students.
Mr. Teams?
Thank you. If you think about years past, 180 days was the school year. Looking at our 4-day school year, I think, and I may be off a day or two, I think our school calendar is approximately 143 days. And if I'm not mistaken, we can do that through waivers from the Department of Education. I know there's some misconceptions that, they're having longer days. Polk School District is not having longer days. If they are, I'm missing that. It is, to my knowledge, it is not a longer day. So let's take that 143-day school day. We all know we have inclement weather. We miss average 2 or 3 days a year with inclement weather, or we have online learning days. We've cut our face-to-face instruction down to 140. Take a high school student. They do that 4 years. They've lost 40 days of school a year for the equivalent of 160 days of missed face-to-face instruction. Teachers may like it. Lots of teachers don't. Take a math teacher. I'm a math teacher now. COVID's over. Accountability is starting to kick in. I only instruct my kids 143 days. They have to take the same end-of-course test. If I'm an AP teacher, they have to take the same AP test that the students in Floyd County are taking with 180 days of instruction. Chattooga, Polk, Bartow, all of our neighboring counties, with the exception of Harrelson, who does a 4-day week with a longer day. So I am totally for 5 days. The only way I personally would support a 4-day week would be to mirror perhaps Harrelson County, who does have a longer school day, or at least they did. I'm assuming they still do. So I'm a big advocate of going back to 180 days a year.
Mr. Hawkins?
You know, in my career with Polk School District, I've done every kind of schedule and every kind of calendar you can think of. And 4 days, in my opinion, is not what is best for the students. It's just not. 5 days is always going to be better. You know, now, that being said, if District 5 overwhelmingly says, I think 4 days, and they can argue that point, then we'll have that discussion. But I'm with Greg. I think you're gonna do 4 days. We need to have a period, a longer day to make that happen. We're just losing way too much instruction, and the kids are suffering. And at the end of the day, your tax dollars, the entire community, our goal and our money is for that student to be successful when they graduate high school. And if we're handicapping them right off the bat, then with a 4-day week, then we're not doing our due diligence, and we're not serving those kids and putting their needs first. Now, probably the students will tell you, oh, it's great, it's the best thing ever, but it's, as far as educational wise, in my opinion, it's terrible for students, and we need to go back to a 5-day week.
Okay, our final question for these candidates will begin with Mr. Williams. Are there any existing policies that you would like to see changed?
Other than some of the things that we've talked about, just in general, not one in specific. Being a graduate of this school system and a citizen in this community, growth is coming this way. And societal changes with our younger folks, it's difficult with the social media aspects of everything that they have to deal with. I saw a video clip the other day of students back in the 1980s and 1990s, and it was basically alluding to the fact that at that time, students seemed to be content and happy, less pressure. And they were held to a higher standard at that time. The only thing that I would propose is we set higher standards, expectations of our students, athletes, teachers, and administrators, not as a way to make it harder, but to get them, prepare them for the world. It's not easy these days out there. And our students need to be prepared that it's not easy and that they're going to have to work and compete for anything that they do. When you challenge a kid and you raise their expectations, some of them won't meet those, but a lot of them do, especially with the teachers that we have and the administrators we have. They're passionate about their job. And a lot of them are the role models for these kids. So I would just say, possibly, not that our standards aren't high enough now, but raise our expectations for our students. Hold them to a higher standard, and show them how we do that through our actions, effort, and as role models, and as we interact with them.
Ms. Robinson?
If I were to make a change to any existing school policies that we have, it would be to implement the 5-day school week and to have a better paying policy for our teachers. I've heard concerns from our parents regarding the challenges that their students are facing with a 4-day school week. I believe providing that extra additional day of instruction would allow our students to have more time to process the information they are learning and have a better understanding of what is being taught. With a 5-day school year, students would have more opportunities to ask and receive the extra help needed if needed. Ultimately, this change would lead to a better learning experience for our students and help set them up for success in the future. Also believe that enforcing the better pay policy for teachers is crucial in ensuring student success. It is concerning to hear that our county has one of the lowest pays compared to other surrounding counties, which may lead to losing qualified and experienced teachers who seek better opportunities elsewhere. It is important that policies are put into place to address teacher compensation and retain our educators who play a vital role in shaping the future of our students and their success.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, there's not one policy that I can just speak to right off, but there's a lot of things, a lot of the 4-day week, the senior taxes, personnel curriculum. There's a lot of things that I want to look into, to get familiarized with even more, and more importantly, I want the citizens of District 5 to understand what they are as well. That way, every one of us are informed about what's going on and where we need to go. So if everybody knows the direction, it's pretty easy to get everybody going in the same direction. So, from personnel to expenditures to policies, curriculum, I want to look at all those things and be informed about what's going on, where I can inform the District 5 of what's going on, and then we can make changes in direction from there. So there's not, like I said, one particular policy that I'm looking at. I want to get into and look at all of them and understand all of them, and where we can make improvements for our students, and put those students first in everything that we do. Again, I appreciate being here tonight and everybody showing up and listening to us, and I look forward to serving District 5.
Mr. Teams?
As far as policies go, I remember before my retirement, or around the time I was retiring, the school district did a complete policy review. Most of the board policies line up with the State Board of Education rules. There are a few little policies that you can make on your own, but you pretty much have to follow that state guideline. So as far as changing policies, I can't think of any off the top of my head that I feel like we just absolutely have to change that policy. If we want to say the 4-day versus 5-day week is a policy, then yeah, I would say that we do need to change that. I'm also worried because I hear every other day, well, so-and-so is going to go work for Paulding County because they pay more, or so-and-so is going to Bartow because they're going to make substantially more. We just have to figure out ways to shore up what we're doing, be fiscally sound so that we can be competitive and have quality teachers to work with our students. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all very much for participating tonight. We appreciate your attendance and participation. These are your candidates for Polk School District for District 5, Greg Teams and Jeff Hawkins for District 6, Drew Williams and Christine Robinson.
Thanks again for tuning into this coverage of the Polk County Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum. Don't forget there are other parts of this series available free of charge from Thursday night on polktoday.com. I'm Kevin, the editor. Check out the site and consider grabbing a monthly plus subscription for more content like this for supporters of local news.